Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Matt Lateplo, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from Archer Exploration Corp, a Canadian exploration and development company focused on nickel, copper, cobalt, and platinum group elements. Please note you can submit questions in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Scheduled Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Tom Meyer, President, CEO, and Director of Archer Exploration Corp, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol RCHRF and on the CSE under the symbol RCHR. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks very much, Matt. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I would like to present the Archer exploration story to you. We're a leading Canadian nickel exploration and development company that's focused on nickel sulfides. I'll point you in the direction of the disclaimer on slide 2 and let you read that at your leisure. So what is Archer, or who is Archer? Well, Archer, a nickel sulfide exploration development focused company, and our asset pipeline is essentially what we view as our world-class 100% owned Grasset project in Quebec. We have an existing resource of 5.5 million tons at 1.53% nickel equivalent, and it's very well located in the Abitibi greenstone belt. It's off the highway, and from an exploration standpoint, there's lots of room for us to grow this resource. We also have a very large strategic portfolio in the Sudbury camp, so in Sudbury, Ontario, which has been actively mining nickel sulfides for over 130 years. So the value proposition is that Grasset is a 2012 vintage discovery with that resource is really based on one drill program. So just literally early days in terms of scratching the surface and growing that resource. And it sits along a 23-kilometer Ultramafic corridor. So a very, very favorable trend for us to find more nickel along that trend. So expanding that resource at Grasset is a key focus for us. And I think as we look around the world these days, having a great deposit and having it in a great location kind of just lowers the overall risk profile. And I can say, having past work in sub-Saharan Africa and other parts of the world, which sometimes can be challenging, not all times, but sometimes, being located in Quebec, in Ontario, is an absolute blessing, and it's a pleasure to work. They're mining friendly, they're infrastructure rich. We have in Canada very, very favorable exploration tax incentives. We've got excellent relationships with our First Nations communities, which we meet with weekly and discuss what our plans are and how we're working, and we use their support and their labor to help us move these projects forward. So great jurisdiction, and I think that should provide comfort to many investors that are active in the exploration and development space. We also have a very strong team, diverse skill set, seasoned, with great track records around the world, and in nickel in particular. I myself, I'm a metallurgist by training, and the early part of my career and education as well, in being involved with two of the giants in the nickel space, Inco, which was acquired by Vale a number of years ago now, and then also Falconbridge, which is part of the Glencore portfolio, both doing work in Sudbury and on the research side. So I think that's a key point. Nickel can be challenging at some points, and not just on the exploration side, but also on the metallurgy side. And we've kind of rounded all those aspects of it by having developed and brought forward a team that can execute on the projects that we have. And I think everyone's well aware, in kind of the theme of this little conference that OTC Markets has put together. We do have this market tailwind, not so visible as you can see in the markets today, with the kind of weakness across some of the commodity prices, but there is without a doubt, growing demand for clean energy technologies and electric vehicles, which you can all point to. And there's many, many other applications that we rarely hear about in the background. That technology is advancing quietly. But I think it's safe to say that the metal intensity of our future economy is increasing. So we're needing more and more metals, and in many cases, specialty metals as well. So we've got fantastic nickel projects, great location, great team, and then the macro backdrop is very supportive over the next few years. And the headline at the top of this slide with Grasset as being the only undeveloped nickel sulfide deposit that's greater than 50,000 tons of nickel, and it's not held by a major. So this is a significant scale in terms of this deposit, and as we grow it, it becomes much more interesting. So now to orient everyone here, there's the Sudbury camp towards the bottom of the map, and I'm active for over 130 years of nickel production in that camp. Archer we have the third largest land package in that camp. Over 37 properties, 300 kilometers squared, and it's, like I said, infrastructure rich with milling capacity and smelting capacity. So a great place to be exploring for nickel. Grasset, which is our flagship project, it's really the cornerstone of our portfolio. And I will say, to kind of balance things out, we spend just approximately 80% of our time, 80% of our focus of dollars, etc., are on Grasset, because we believe that is got the greatest opportunity in terms of expanding a resource and growing the nickel content that we have in our portfolio in the near term. And that's located, we have in the center of the map, the Abitibi Greenstone Belt. And so we're just off of that. And those little X's that you could see are mining operations. So it is in a mining, well-established mining camp as well. Corporate snapshot, we have approximately 91 million shares outstanding. As of our most recent published March quarter, about $9 million Canadian in the bank. Market cap at the end of July, just about $10 million Canadian, and so that would work out to an enterprise value of about $1 million. So if one were to do the math on the tons of nickel that we have in the ground in terms of that indicated resource, so that rounds up to about 150 million pounds that we have contained in that resource. And that just using to round down the current nickel price of $9, we've got about $1.3 billion of value that's sitting in the ground. And the market disconnect of where we are currently in the cycle, significantly undervaluing that. And we could touch on some of those reasons for that a little later on. But insiders and advisors, associates, were just less than 10%. Walbridge Mining, who was a part of this transaction and bringing in these nickel assets into Archer, they retained an 19.9% interest. We have a large institutional or high net worth component of about 30%, and retail, which is about 40% at present. To focus further on the Grasset project, we do highlight that it is an unexplored opportunity and with a lot of room to grow. And just to show the location, so in the center, in the green highlight, there's our Grasset claim block of 23 kilometers, and the inset to the right, the map just shows where Grasset sits in the province of Quebec relative to Ontario and to Sudbury. But important to note that we are off the highway. So about 100 miles to Lassar, and a little over 100 miles to Amos. And so we can access our properties by road Trucks can drive to site, which is great from a logistics standpoint, and also important to keep our cost of exploration low. We're not flying things in. The other point, and I think very important for nickel projects, the metallurgy work is very preliminary, but the work that was done on the metallurgy side, so we're exploring. We got the 5.5 million ton resource that's going to grow as we continue to drill. But one of the challenges with nickel, not just on the exploration side and finding an economic deposit, but you can find a deposit, but if it's not amenable, you can't recover that nickel, or if that nickel is very challenging to recover, that will just add to the overall cost of the project, the initial cost, but also the operating cost. But so preliminary work was done on the metallurgy, and it does point to that we can produce a high quality nickel concentrate by a conventional flow sheet. So all that means is that we don't need to invent anything. We don't need to spend a lot of money on the processing side in order to get the nickel out of the ground and then into a form of a concentrate that then could be shipped for 500 or 600 kilometers to Sudbury for processing and turning into nickel metal, class 1 nickel metal that can be then sold and then turned into batteries or other technical applications. So that is a big check mark for us, not only at Grasset, but also the same can be said for our projects in Sudbury as well. That the nickel that we have in the ground can actually be converted without too much of a challenge to nickel in terms of a product. And just to come back to this, we're world-class area for this project. We've got the neighboring mines in the area. We're 77 kilometers from Matagami, to the right of that map there, which had just until recently a zinc operation run by Glencore. So very well located in terms of infrastructure, which again keeps the overall costs to the project minimized. And then just a quick story for Grasset and this discovery. I think it's very important because as nickel has moved from $3-4 a pound, now trading a little over $9 a pound, and we had a situation not too long ago where it traded well above that from a market dislocation. This project was discovered in 2012. And by accident, Balmoral Resources was searching for gold and accidentally discovered nickel. So this Grasset project is unique in the sense that it's not a 1950s or 60s project that now becomes particularly interesting because of not just the demand, but also with the nickel price being a little bit more robust than it has been. But this is quite interesting from an exploration side, that this was a discovery from 2012, and we're literally just scratching the surface. A little bit more information on the geology and the Grasset Ultramafic complex. So the Grasset resource sits on the bottom right of this map here. You can see Grasset nickel deposit, and then a further 7 kilometers away there's another Grasset, so GUC Central, so that stands for Grasset Ultramafic Complex Central Discovery, which only has about 9 holes in it. But the point with this is just to show that we've got a 23-kilometer package, underexplored. We're in a belt of size and of significance from a geology standpoint that one would expect if we have this discovery with Grasset to find more of the nickel sulfides. We've got the scale of the structures of the geology. We've got sources of nickel, i.e. Through the volcanics. We also have a source of sulfur, which you need in order to create the nickel sulfides. So we have all the ingredients to find more. And so that trend is just, again, early days in terms of that exploration. And we can point to similar types of deposits, famous in Quebec with the Raglan camp, and in Western Australia there's the Kambalda camp, which would be very good analogs to what we have at Grasset. And the inset on the left here of this slide is just showing a VTEM anomaly. So this is a geophysical anomaly. So where it lights up in red is in kind of the center, and there's an arrow pointed in the Grasset VTEM conductor. So that's the Grasset deposit as we know it. And this map is just showing that there are other untested conductors that we could follow up on, again pointing to the exploration prospectivity. And further along with this map on the right, just showing the magnetic response of the deposit. So just the contrast between the density of the rocks and kind of helping us find more along this trend. And the techniques that we're using, like with the VTEM, with the magnetics, among other geophysical techniques, to help us target more. And so we are using the latest technology to explore for more. Grasset is buried by a glacial till. So the techniques that we're using, which include to manage around that glacial till, is a sonic drill program where we drill through the glacial till, which is just sand and gravel, and look for geochemical response anomalies at the base of that till, and that will help us with targeting. And then we use an Infinitem XL survey work, again, geophysical techniques to help us see through cover and the rock and down to about 8 to 1,000 meters depth. So just using the latest technology to help us target more. So our recent work, which included the geophysics, which included the sonic work, and including the drill program. So at the end of the day, the truth teller is the drill bit. So what we find with our drilling and our success with the drill bit points to the techniques that we use to grow the resource. So this map is a surface plan map of the drilling that we've done, but also highlighted in red the H3 and H1. So this is that 5.5 million ton resource projected to the surface. So from an underground perspective, to the left is a kind of 3D isometric view of the deposit, with mostly being H3 and the green here on the left, and there's a little bit of H1. But if you were to project that resource to the surface, this is what it would look like from top down, looking towards the bottom. And then just the shading on this map is just showing the different types of rocks that we have in the area. These are the drill holes of recent and some of the historic, with hole 1 and 2. And bring your attention to hole 3, which we announced in June. Very exciting, 1.82% nickel over a little over 4.6 meters. And that included 5.75% nickel over 0.6 meters. So that's quite exciting. We've got other holes where assays are pending, where we're targeting underneath those horizons H3 and H1. So that will become clearer in a subsequent slide here, which is showing a section. So if I could just back up. So if we were to take a kind of slice through H3 and H1 and look at it, how it would look from the side and the underground. So this section, so H3 and H1 in red here. So that's the bulk of the nickel sulfide mineralization, so contained in those two lenses. And that resource of 5.5 million tons is defined down to about vertically depth of about 550, 600 meters. And then we show a picture of example of the core that we pull out of the ground, which is the combination at the bottom massive sulfides, and then as you move up towards the top of these three pieces of core into more disseminated. So we get a range of the disseminated, which would be around 1%. And then when we get into the massive, we can have nickel grades as high as 14%. So our goal is to find more of those massive nickel sulfides. So the way to picture these two sections here is that in the many years ago, these deposits, these lenses, were actually sitting horizontally as part of a kind of a lava flow that contained nickel, and that lava flow containing the nickel combining with the sulfides, you have mixing, and you have the formation of nickel sulfide. So the nickel gets pulled out of that lava, out of that magma. And that formation over time, it will settle out. The nickel sulfides will be denser than the liquid rock, and you'd have this coalescing and eventually settling out into the massive sulfide. So these two mineralized zones were once horizontal. They're tilted vertically. So one of the things with the program is to understand that orientation, because if we can find more of these massive the disseminated sulfides, they may lead us to more of these massive sulfides. So when we find these massive sulfides, it becomes a lot more efficient to be adding tons to the resource using these higher grades. And so the deepest intercept that we had back in 2018 was an intercept at 775 meters at depth of 2.76% nickel over half a meter. So horizontal, now tilted vertically. So in our view, exploring and expanding this resource at depth is in our opinion, the most efficient way to find more of those nickel units. And here's another example of our exploration success. So the map on the left, again, the same plan view, but here we're showing a slice through H1. So currently H3 contains the bulk of that 5.5 billion ton resource. H1 is a small part, it's a much thinner part, but the slice through is shown with this, what we call the longitudinal section, which shows the historic drilling and its grade thickness representation. So hole 3, that 1.82% nickel that was announced in June, approximately 2 months ago now, that's a new zone. That's a kind of new part of that, a new exciting discovery part of H1. And it just shows that it's off and it's located in an area that hasn't seen pretty much any work. No work has been done. No drilling has been done on 200 meters on either side of that hole. It's cut off by some faulting with the Sunday Lake deformation zone, but it's wide open. The squares that are shown on this longitudinal are the results of our downhole or borehole, drill hole, electromagnetic work with the geophysics, and it's just showing there's conductive plates, and these conductive plates are indicating some, it could be pyrrhotite, it could be pentlandite. It's showing us something that is worth following up from a drill program. So these would be drill targets that we'll kind of lay out for our next round of drilling that we have planned for Grasset. But the point here with this longitudinal is new discovery with H1, high grade, above average nickel content, and in an area that has seen very little work, and it's open to find more of that nickel sulfide. So it's from an investor standpoint, it's a stay tuned, and we're excited to kind of pursue that work in the coming months. Now, just quickly to touch on Sudbury. So Grasset is our focus. 80% of our time budget is in that. We also have a very large land package in Sudbury, so I'll just briefly touch on the Parkin project, which this map is showing to the right in these the claim blocks of Parkin. It's what we call in Sudbury an offset dike. About a third of all the ore that's come out of that camp is from such an offset dike. This is the most advanced exploration target that we have within our Sudbury portfolio, and we're doing geophysics work that will help us kind of lay out in detail a drill program to target to identify potential nickel sulfides. But this area of that Sudbury Basin and this offset in particular is what we view as it's highly prospective, and we're excited to be following up with this program in the coming months. So that's a key component to the Archer story, is that we've got not just our advanced resource development and expansion at Grasset, but we've got a pretty exciting exploration portfolio and many targets, and Parkin being one that we're refining in terms of the actual location of the drilling that we'll be doing. But for the most part, this offset dike that we have at Parkin is untested. And I guess the future, when you look at the future of nickel exploration in that Sudbury camp, it just becomes much more exciting because we have that infrastructure with the sense that there's milling capacity and there's smelting capacity that's available should we have, which we do anticipate success in that camp. So as far as the news flow and upcoming catalysts go, we are working obviously from a corporate side with our community relations, overviewing all the assets and prioritizing targets as we kind of laid out with Grasset, but also with Sudbury. We'll move to a venture listing away from the CSE listing that we currently have. From the Grasset standpoint, it's more exploration work on the geophysics side, the drilling side, and then some of the regional planning that we have along that 23-kilometer trend. As it relates to Sudbury, it is mostly in the short term about refining the geophysics models and the testing, and then planning the drill program on the back of the results of the geophysics. And some of the other properties that I didn't mention in the short time that we have, essentially the same modeling, the 3D modeling, very preliminary magnetics, geophysics, and prospecting around, again, to lay out plans to execute on those projects in the coming months. So just quickly, I'll touch on the team. I'm President and CEO with a background in metallurgy. Jack Gauthier, our VP Explorations, over 40 years of experience on the exploration front. So a tremendous asset to Archer. And Sherry, our CFO, who's been active with a number of junior exploration companies. So excellent team. And Wes Short, our VP Corporate Development, with a background in resource companies. Our board is very experienced in the resource exploration development phase, and Mars Cord and Brian Penny represent the Walbridge stake with that 19.9% interest. We also have a technical advisory committee which sits in the background and provides guidance to management and the exploration team, chaired by Neil O'Brien, formerly Senior Vice President at Lundin Mining for exploration, and across the board, Steve Beach, who's practical and empirical and tremendous history with success at the Eagle East discovery, which is a nickel sulfide discovery in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and over to Dr. Mike Lesher, who is a professor at Laurentian University. So an excellent technical advisory committee that provides guidance for management and the team. And I'll just bring your attention to the inventory that we have. So this is our 43-101 compliant metal inventory. So that wraps up the presentation. Should there be any questions or comments, I'm reachable at the tom@archerexploration.com, and there's more information on our website, archerexploration.com. Thank you very much for your